Hello and welcome back to Talking Water with me, David Easson, and Graham Mann, who's alongside me once again. And I'm happy to say in this episode of Talking Water, we have a guest, don't we, Graham?
We do indeed.
Our guest today is the editor of the UK Water Report. It's Karma Loveday. Karma, great to have you along.
Thanks for inviting me.
Very welcome. And the UK Water Report. Obviously, we're talking water, so it links up very nicely. Tell us about what the UK Water Report reports on.
So I'm the founder and editor of the publication. We do a weekly newsletter and a monthly magazine, and our focus is on regulation, policy, strategy and finance in the UK water sector. And we do also have a kind of dedicated section on the non-household retail market, which is probably relevant for this podcast.
Yes, because we're switchwatersupplier.com. Should have put that in there as well. Well, that's who we are. Well, certainly who Graham works with. That's you. You are switchwatersupplier.com. Yeah. It's so important that businesses are in control of their water management, the costs, everything that goes into looking after water as it comes in and out of your business, Graham.
That's absolutely right. Yes, we have a few questions for you, Karma, utilising your expertise. The UK's water industry rollout by the wholesalers with smart meters. Could you just explain to us in brief what smart meters are?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, most meters in the market that people will be familiar with, most of them are what we call dumb meters. So that means they physically need what's called an eyeball read. So you need someone to actually find the meter, stand over it, read the dial and report that back in. That's the vast majority of meters out there today. There are some typically businesses who have what are called automatic meter read, AMR meters, and they are a bit more sophisticated in that they can be read sort of by drive-by or walk-by technology, but nonetheless, that still requires somebody to physically go by them, and that tends to be more frequent than your dumb meter, so that might be maybe quarterly or something of that nature, but you're still only getting that one read every so often. So what's actually happening is from 2025, which we're now in, of course, so from April this year, there's going to be a very widespread rollout of smart meters. And they are meters that are basically always connected via some kind of technology communications network. And they will be typically reading the meter every hour and typically relaying that back to the water wholesaler once a day. So you're moving from a situation where you've had pretty infrequent reads to the potential to see what you're consuming on an hourly basis. So as you can imagine, that, enables quite a few things that we haven't been able to do to date. So, I can go into that in more detail if you'd like. Would you like more information on the kind of benefits and things?
Yeah, but that's an incredible amount of data, isn't it? You go from maybe reading once a quarter, once a year, and then you've got once every hour. This data's coming in. That's incredibly useful to monitor not just individual businesses, but the way we as a country use water.
Yeah, you're quite right. So it's actually going to revolutionise our visibility of what we're using, which is pretty old-fashioned at the moment. Let's be honest. So yes, I mean, as I should have said, that the smart meters that I've just described, they're being rolled out for both household customers and business customers. And for businesses in particular, they do use about a third of all the water put into supply. So about a third of that goes to businesses, with the rest going to households. And if you're thinking in particular about the medium and large consumers, they do use a kind of disproportionate amount of the water. So about almost 3/4 of non-household consumption is accounted for by about 13% of customers who have medium and large meters. So you can imagine if you're one of those customers, even if you're not, but in particular, if you're one of those major users, having this granular data is going to enable you, obviously to track in a general sense what you're using more closely. But of course, if you have, the ability to kind of more actively manage what you're using. So if you see a spike in consumption, you might think, what's happened? Is that a leak? Is something changed? What is it? It offers the opportunity for things like site benchmarking. So if you've got multiple sites that are principally the same, let's say you're a big retailer, for example, with shops all over the country, if one of them is out of kilter with normal patterns, again, you might be able to think, well, why is that? Is there a legitimate reason for that, or is there a problem with that site? And I think really one of the real big win potentials from here is identifying leaks. So what smart meters enable you to do, because you're getting data every hour, is to see if there is what's called continuous flow. So that's kind of water continually running through the meter 24 hours a day. So obviously there could be some legitimate causes of that if you're operating a 24-hour business or something of that nature. But in many cases where you find that level of continuous flow, it will be because there's a leak. And I think the early data that's come through from some of the water companies that have pioneered smart metering, there are two that have kind of gone ahead of the others. And so we have some early data in from them. It's a really high proportion. It's about a quarter of all businesses have found to have some continuous flow going through the meter. So again, that is an enormous amount of potential waste. Obviously, not necessarily all waste, but it's a huge amount of potential waste to find that you perhaps wouldn't have found before.
Something you've already seen with switchwatersupplier.com and your clients, Graham, is that for you to have any data of that sort really increases the benefits that you can give to your clients. So with this kind of data, future clients, current customers can benefit even more from this kind of, this granular data that we're going to be getting.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it, Karma? Really, I mean,
Yes,
I remember with our other business, H2O Building Services, we were installing water flow data loggers 32 years ago.
Yeah,
on an ad hoc basis.
You're quite right. I mean, it's quite behind what customers will be used to in energy, for example. I think that's the obvious comparator. And what you can get in energy and what you can get in water at the moment are poles apart. So you're right. It's not before time. I agree.
What do you think's driving this, the smart meter revolution? I call it smart meter revolution because it's got so many benefits. It's sustainability, cost reduction in parallel.
Yes. So I think why is it happening now is the question. As you've just alluded to, we probably could have benefited from this from some time ago. But I think the main reason now is there is a kind of a recognition of the need for more granular water consumption information because of increased recognition of the water resources and water security context. So in case your listeners are not familiar, there is now an agreed a statistic that by 2050 we will be 5 billion litres a day short, which is quite an alarming statistic if you think about it. That's a lot of water. I think it's about a third of what we currently use that we are going to need. Wow. And there is a kind of an agreed plan of what we're going to do about this, and about a third of that amount is due to be made up by new supplies coming on stream, so building new reservoirs, new transfers, etc. About a third of it is due to come from reduced leakage from the network. So at the moment, it's about 19% of water that's put into supplies lost to leakage. So a big driver to drive that down. But the other third is due to come from demand reduction. So that would be both businesses and households. And there are now some actual formal targets to that end, which have come in under the Environment Act. So there's a target for water use in England in the household market to reduce by 20% by 2038 and 9% for non-household. So that's a statutory legislated for target. So I think what we've seen, I suppose, to cut a long story short, is, smart meters have gone from being something that's sort of a luxury, or perhaps for the businesses that are very environmentally aware or, very cost conscious or whatever, to becoming virtually really a necessity for the whole country and everyone having to do their bit. So, I think, while it's being driven principally from that kind of environmental water scarcity angle, it is probably worth saying as well that the government now has this massive growth mission. And I think there's another strand that, you can enable more growth if you can waste less from current users. So there's kind of an additional driver there. And from the customer side, obviously, we've talked about the better control it will give. But one thing we haven't mentioned, which is really important, is that it would also improve your billing. So A lot of customers still struggle with estimated bills or inaccurate bills. So it's another benefit for the customer is to have hopefully more accurate bills, and obviously the ability to save money as well.
Well, it's because how much is this actually being driven by the market is one thing, but businesses, and we've heard about sustainability targets and that the ability to see your own water usage. There are targets there that need to be hit, and this seems to be the ideal way to hit them and go beyond, because it's not a 1 year thing, is it? It's not even a 3 or 5 year thing. This needs to be consistently part of any business's future outlook.
Yeah, you're right. And I think where we've seen any kind of granular data being gathered hitherto, it has been coming from like the customer side, and the customer wanting those meters, or often it's loggers at the moment, on more traditional meters, so that the customers can feed data into their own business management systems. So it has very much been the more, as I say, the more aware or the more cost conscious, or those who've perhaps got corporate sustainability targets, really wanting to have this more granular information. But the change, maybe to be clear, the change that's coming now is that this is going to be part of the regulatory arrangement for the next 5-year period. So it's not now going to be dependent on customers asking for these meters. The change that's coming is that it's going to be led by the wholesalers and funded through mainstream billing. I can go into that in more detail if you want in a moment.
I was going to ask you about that
one. Yes, but essentially what we're looking at is between 2025 and 2035, all the meters being upgraded to smart, and that will be done by the wholesalers in each area, running programs which are funded centrally through bills. And it's mostly front loaded, actually. So while the rollout does run up to about 2035, most of those meters are going to, according to the plans anyway, due to be in by 2030. So we should see some quite rapid change coming through. And yeah, just on the kind of the numbers behind it. So Ofwat is the regulator for the water companies, and every 5 years they do a price review, and they set what companies can charge their customers and what they have to do in terms of service level in that 5 years. We've literally just in December had the decisions come out from Ofwat that will be in place from April 2025 right through to April 2030. And as part of that funding package, there is £1.7 billion allocated to fund around 10 million smart meters. And around 800,000 of those will be for non-household customers, and the rest for household. So rather than as a customer you having to ask and you having to pay, you will still be paying, but everyone will be paying, and it will be through the sort of socialised through the bill, and it will be down to the wholesalers to work out who's getting a meter when. It's probably going to be geographically led. We haven't yet got visibility from the wholesalers on exactly what their plans are, but it's most likely to be geographically led. So all the meters in a given area changed over, upgraded, etc. So yeah, lots of change coming.
Yeah, it feels like it's a positive move. Is there that feeling in the industry, that in the pages of the UK Water Report, are we feeling that actually this is a change that not only needs to be made, but actually people are getting on board with this now, and over the next few decades, this is something that we won't only need to do, but there is that turnaround now that we're not spending years moaning about something, we're actually going to spend the next few years actually doing something.
Yeah, I think certainly from the water industry, so that's both the wholesale companies and the retail companies. I think both are on board with this. It does create a lot of opportunity for both wholesalers to manage down demand, for retailers as well. They'll have all this new data, so you would hope that would spur some innovation and new service provision and things that we haven't seen before. From the customer side, certainly from large users, I mean, one of the things I do as well as the Water Report is I work as an advisor to the Major Energy Users Council, which is a body that represents industrial and commercial customers. So certainly from our membership and that kind of sophisticated large user, there is a real appetite for better data, for better billing, more information. So definitely from that side. I mean, I imagine there probably will be some reluctance from some customers. I mean, we've seen that in energy smart meter rollout, haven't we? I'm not saying every household is kind of desperate to get a smart meter for their water, that most people probably wouldn't even know it was happening. But, you know, I think it's again, for those kind of more reluctant folk, I think it's going to, you know, we are going to need a really strong explanation and communications program. I mean, there isn't really a great deal of public awareness of water scarcity still, and kind of water security issues going into the future. So, no, I think, you know, we probably will see some challenge in terms of welcoming this. But I think for businesses, I think, you know, it is really a good thing. You know, it offers a lot of opportunity. It's not to say it won't be without hitch, you know. I mean, these are massive programs, massive change programs. I'm sure we've all got experience of, you know, either as personal or business, you know, things don't always go smoothly. We know that. So there could, I know, you know, installing a smart meter can be literally anything from half an hour, straightforward job, no problem, to something that stretches out for months, or I think even a year if you have to kind of fight for access to the premises and so on. So I'm not saying it's all going to be plain sailing. There will be issues, I'm sure, but fundamentally, is it a good thing? Yes, absolutely it is.
You've highlighted some amazing figures with regards to the deficit in water consumption from the UK, David. I mean, that's absolutely enormous. We covered a story a couple of months ago where we were acting on behalf of a customer that was building quite a large manufacturing business in Hartlepool, and we made an application for a new water supply, and it was turned down on the basis we were asking for 60 cubic meters a day uses for manufacturing, and the water company rejected it and said you can only have 10. I mean, you know,
that was because of availability, was it? They didn't
absolutely
physically have the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we intervened with that, and we managed to convince Anglian Water that it was to reflect on their decision. Ultimately, it's down now to 60 cubic meters a day, but they've actually put a controlling valve in there. So if the customer exceeds that 60 cubic meters a day, they can actually disconnect that supply. I mean, and we had to pay for the controlling valve at $3,500. So, and that's not the only, you've probably heard in the press about other companies wanting to expand their businesses, but they can't because there's no water availability. So
yeah, so really, that's why it's becoming a real issue. Yeah, so as I say, there is limited awareness, but we are now seeing pockets. I mean, particularly, you know, you've just given a good example there, but I think Cambridge is another really strong example. So that whole area, there are really ambitious growth plans there, hundreds of thousands of homes, you know, high-end business park, technology, science, etc. They're building a couple of new train stations, I think. And, you know, there are really ambitious plans, but there is the fundamental challenge that there just isn't enough water at the moment to supply that demand. So places like that, I mean, I think North Sussex, I think, has got a moratorium on new connections as well. So there are pockets, and it is becoming real. And if you think about going forward into the future, there's obviously climate change and more unusual weather patterns to deal with as well. I think this is going to be something that goes from being a sort of theoretical position in most people's minds to actually being something that people do start to have touch points with, even if it's in summer peaks where, you know, there's kind of controls on usage, etc. We are going to start to feel this more keenly. So, you know, smart meter is just one part of that jigsaw, but I think it is fundamental. If you don't have that data, if you can't see what you're using, you know, you're on a hiding to nothing to try and get people to use less if they don't know what they're using at the moment. So it's kind of an enabler, I suppose, of potentially more mindful usage and less waste. I think that's the key thing for businesses. It can be quite daunting, I think, as a business to be sort of expected to use less. If you think, oh, you know, I want to expand my production, I'm already quite efficient, I've already got this, that and the other. But really, identifying waste and eliminating waste that you're not actually getting the value from anyway is where the sweet spot is, I think.
So many questions, so many topics, as actually I found out over the past year doing this Talking Water with Graham and switchwatersupplier.com, and it's only going to expand. The UK Water Report it's a monthly publication, isn't it, Karma? And it's there's weekly newsletters as well, and it's tell us a little bit about what people will receive if they sign up to the UK Water Report.
So I think what we try to offer is really high quality, in-depth information. So we do have a newsletter, as I mentioned. The weekly is effectively just to keep you abreast of anything that's happened that week. But the magazine itself, we do try to really go below the surface. We talk, it's a lot of interviews, it's a lot of attending events and talking to people and really providing a more analytical, discursive, but also very balanced. We are an independent publication, so we're not on anyone's side really. We just try to tell the truth and provide constructive information that hopefully will help people do their jobs properly and ask challenging questions and so on and so forth. So if you're interested in anything to do with policy, regulation, strategy, then it would be worth having a look at our website.
Excellent. So what is that website?
I wondered if I was allowed to say. Yes, no. So that's it's thewaterreport.co.uk. Very simple.
Karma Loveday, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Talking Water with switchwatersupplier.com. Many more questions. I'm sure we'll be emailing you again in future to see if you'll come back on and ask some more, because it's constantly changing, this market. But we really appreciate your time today. Thank you for that, and thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of Talking Water.
Bye for now.